office has consistently declined to prosecute crimes in the city. Notably, the policies include not seeking cash bail for most cases, considering a defendant's immigration status in the plea bargaining process, and not prosecuting crimes like prostitution or marijuana possession.
House Republicans presented a flurry of evidence, like, for example, that during DA Larry Krasner's first term, starting in 2018, homicide rates went up 78%. Also, that apparently Larry Krasner, the DA of Philadelphia, had instructed his attorneys not to prosecute with misdemeanors or felonies those criminals caught stealing or shoplifting merchandising under $500. We also heard from experts like Nick Garacci, a former Philadelphia police officer, who called DA Larry Krasner a serial killer by proxy.
He prioritizes the pursuit of his ideological agenda over public safety. Let him go Larry has put the lives of Philadelphia residents at risk, or Uncle Larry, as the criminal underground in Philadelphia refers to him so lovingly.
Democratic ranking member Congressman Jared Nadler from New York lamented that the House Judiciary Committee was not working from Washington, D.C., and accused Republicans of politicizing this hearing.
Our time would be better spent again back in D.C., passing bills that can help support Philadelphia and all our communities to be safer places for every American.
We also heard from Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, who accused House Democrats of hosting a traveling circus.
Instead, he's brought his traveling circus to town in order to divide Americans, scare voters, influence elections, and distract from the crushing failure of the House majority to govern.
Republicans and Democrats threw competing statistics throughout the hearing, but one statistic that held firm was last year's murder rate. In Philadelphia in 2023, over 400 people were violently murdered, which is of serious concern to local authorities. Reporting from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
TD Bank was allegedly involved in moving fentanyl money for Chinese money launderers. This is according to a Wall Street Journal report. Federal agents say tactics being employed here have become more sophisticated. NTD's Dave Martin has more.
TD Bank helping China launder fentanyl money, according to the Justice Department. The Wall Street Journal reports an operation was uncovered in New York and New Jersey, which laundered hundreds of millions of dollars in illegal drug money via TD Bank and other banks. This is according to court files and people in the know.
Chinese money laundering organizations have gotten very good at shielding ill-gotten gains. These organizations launder cartel cash quicker and cheaper than competitors, often with a money-back guarantee.
During a hearing on Chinese money laundering Tuesday, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse said that Chinese money laundering organizations work with Mexican cartels to move fentanyl profits. The Journal reports, according to court files in 2021, federal agents followed suspects through New York City streets as they carried giant bags of cash bank to bank. On one occasion, they even caught suspects bribing TD employees.
They can, make them look the other way when opening bank accounts using fictitious, high-quality Chinese passports.
Federal investigator Ricardo Mayoral told lawmakers he's often seen these organizations engaging in bribery, which bypasses traditional detection systems.
The other thing that they're using by placing members of the organization within the bank branches is to not only monitor the account, but to control and change the addresses once the bank accounts are open.
In the Justice Department probe, the Chinese laundering organization offered $57,000 in bribes to TD employees. This included gift cards. The organization moved at least $653 million to thousands of entities in the U.S. and Hong Kong, according to court documents. The Justice Department is also investigating TD Bank for 3 other instances of money laundering. A Canadian regulator fined nearly $7 million on Wednesday. TD Bank said Thursday it's cooperating with law enforcement and strengthening its anti-money laundering program. This is Dave Martin for NTD News.
Coming up, in horse racing, the fastest 2 minutes in sports is just a day away. Dave Martin joins us to discuss this prestigious event when we return.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew with specialty quality.
CHTV.com. We also have a website for it, massmigrationfilm.com. If you're a subscriber to Epic TV, you can watch it. This is going to be a very important documentary. It details my trip, of course, to Darien, and also going into some of the different parts of how the system of mass migration works. We will show you, we got access to a lot of areas you can't normally get access to, and we detail the systems between the United Nations, the U.S. government, with, for example, Customs Border Protection, Department of Homeland Security, how the process is facilitated. We will show you exactly what is happening and exactly how it works. This is a very important film. Again, it's called Weapons of Mass Migration, and it premieres May 9th on epictv.com. Let me show you a trailer.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop.
According to statistics, around 7.2 million illegal immigrants entered the United States under President Joe Biden alone. They have United Nations facilities here, and the people pushing this are leading people to their death. To what extent is the United Nations facilitating the border crisis? They're being overridden by international powers.
We are not authorized to talk.
It is a humanitarian business now.
And they said, oh yeah, these are the debit cards. We're giving these debit cards to you.
Why all the cloak and dagger? Why are we being so stealthy about this?
Some of these people have gone on record and publicly talked about this, people close to Barack Obama.
It is 12 million people on the path to citizenship and eventually voters.
I've been researching, of course, what's happening, but I want to know why it's happening.
We'll see chaos on a global scale until America is extinguished and the power shifts completely to the east.
Pointed out that Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote. That's what they said, right? Now, had the votes been counted and we just went by the popular vote, they were claiming that Hillary Clinton would have been president of the United States. But since we have the Electoral College in this country, which gives a set number of votes to each state, Donald Trump won the Electoral College, and in 2016, Donald J. Trump became president, despite the popular vote, right? But that conflict between the popular vote and the Electoral College system, that did not just fade into history. There have been a lot of ongoing movements pushing to enact a popular vote system in the United States. And this may be further along than most of you realize. Already, as we're speaking right now in the United States, 17 U.S. states and Washington, D.C. are currently on board with dropping the normal use of the Electoral College for a popular vote. And they have a bit of a loophole they found with it to make it so they have to totally get rid of it. Let me explain. ABC News is saying after much public debate, a Maine law has brought the country closer to having the popular vote determine the winner of national presidential elections. But it's unlikely that will happen before November or even at all, they're claiming. It notes further in, the movement has now gathered pledges from 17 states and Washington, D.C., accounting for a total of 209 electoral votes. A good chunk of them, actually. It notes that the movement seeks to change the way a president is chosen without a constitutional amendment, meaning because of the loophole they found, they don't need to go through the process you would have to go through otherwise if you wanted to overturn the Electoral College. They note that experts say it's unclear what happens when enough states have signed on to this because they have 17 already and they're trying to get more. They note, though, that this would not probably happen before the 2024 elections. Now, this is what it's called. It's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. And they said it seeks to guarantee that the candidate who receives the most popular votes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia wins the presidency, meaning the normal system of the Electoral College is out. It notes that when there are enough states pledging their popular votes to meet the 270 Electoral College vote threshold, remember they're almost there,
They say all the votes in those states will be added up to a national count that determines the winner of the election. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact says that will give each vote equal weight regardless of where a voter lives. Now, in it, it notes that 5 of the 46 presidents who came into office, lost the popular vote, including, they say, Donald Trump recently in 2016. It notes the compact argues that not every vote is equal under the current system because, again, we have the Electoral College and they want more pure democracy. Now, as you would imagine, there's a lot of different takes on this. Some people are pointing out that it would represent a more pure form of democracy, more of a direct democracy, actually. It would basically mean that votes would be more attributed to individuals rather than to states, because the current system of elections in the U.S. is made to give state representation in, of course, the federal government. And rather than have the state representation, a popular vote would be more the voters having that role. And it would kind of undermine, to an extent, the normal system of state rights, right? But it would also represent a serious shift in the nature of the American Union, which, we're a federal government that joins together 50 different states. Every state, if you were to compare it to another nation on Earth, actually has a system of government, even a military, its own governor. Every state in the U.S. is basically a country joined together into, again, a union of states, which is the United States of America, right? That's what we call the United States. Now, the purpose of the Electoral College in its original use was to make sure that the interests of each state are represented by the federal government, to avoid a scenario where a handful of states, like, it would mainly be California and New York, would dictate the direction of the entire country. And of course, one of the concerns raised by the smaller states was, why would we join the union if we don't get represented? The Electoral College was a way to give incentive to states to actually join the American Federation of States, right, the union, while not having the risk of smaller states losing their representation to larger states, because why would they want to join otherwise? Now, right now, a lot of focus is on Nebraska and Maine, and there's a reason for this. The states, these ones, it's another issue with the Electoral College, but these states have a split vote system. Nebraska, for example, gets 5 out of the 538 Electoral College votes, but it, alongside Maine, the only 2 states that do this, they actually award their votes differently than the rest of the country. Instead of having a so-called winner-take-all system, the way that the normal Electoral College works, these states award an Electoral College vote for each congressional district and then 2 votes to the state winner, at least in Nebraska. The Trump team, actually, for 2024, has been trying to get Nebraska to change this, to adopt the same winner-take-all system as the rest of the country. But so far, Nebraska is not totally budging. And if they do change, the Democrats in Maine are saying they'll adopt the same winner-takes-all rule so that any benefit Trump would get by changing that system in Nebraska would be undermined and basically nullified by changes that would happen in Maine. Now, ironically, though, that type of pressure is also bringing proposed changes to the Electoral College even more into focus. Because, ironically, what Trump is doing in Nebraska and Maine, more mainly in Nebraska, is he's actually encouraging them to change their system of the Electoral College to bring it in line with the way the rest of the country works. But, of course, the other side, the Democrats, are using that to say, well, if you can change the Electoral College, why can't we, basically?
If you're watching this, I didn't make it.
Thanks to people like you and the American Heart Association, my family never had to see this video. I was a healthy 47-year-old, no symptoms. But then my doctor discovered I had a bad heart valve that was beyond repair. The scariest day of my life was when I was sitting on a gurney and I looked and my wife was at my side. And my kids had me surrounded. Deep down, this could be it. This could be all there is.
Not having him around for Riley to grow up with and have that papa figure in his life, that would have been hard.
This little heart valve did something really big. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without it. The research for this heart valve was funded by the American Heart Association. And that's why I'm asking you to become a monthly donor for just $19 a month. When you do, you'll help fund the next medical breakthrough that could save your life or the life of someone you love. You'll also provide life-saving CPR training and help certify hospitals to give the best care to those who have had a heart attack or stroke. When you give $19 a month, we'll send you a t-shirt just like this one. From the moment you put it on, you'll help raise awareness for heart disease and stroke. Since my surgery, I had a son get married. I had a daughter graduate high school. I had another daughter give birth to a precious boy. I would have missed all that. And that's why it's personal for me.
We're very thankful for everyone who is a donor because it gives us more time.
Every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. The next person you help save could be someone you love or even you. Become a monthly donor today by calling or going to helpheart.org because it's personal.
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters, stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-701-6159. That's 800-701-6159.
Hey, welcome back. There's a push taking place at the state level, forming a union of states to end the current form of the Electoral College in national elections and to replace it instead with a popular vote. But other changes to the Electoral College are actually already in place. Now, you might remember that Congress changed the way that it handles Electoral College votes as well. This was actually fairly recently. This was part of the Electoral Count Reform and Presidential Transition Improvement Act of 2022, just a couple years ago. And here's what happened. When Electoral College votes are cast by states, normally you have the potential issue of dueling electors. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, where, again, they're trying to make that illegal. You have the issue of faithless electors. Like, there was a Democrat campaign in 2016 to get, again, Electoral College members to become faithless electors, to vote against Donald Trump, basically, even though they were nominated to vote Republican. And you also have the role of vice president, to count the Electoral College votes before Congress, which establishes, of course, the new president. And they already made some changes to this process. Let me show you how this went down. This is the National Conference of State Legislatures on this issue last year. And it says, days before the end of the 117th Congress, an omnibus appropriations bill was signed by President Joe Biden. Included in that 4,000-page spending law, it was a spending law, but they stuck this into it, was the Electoral Count Reform and Presidential Transition Improvement Act of 2022, or the ECRA. And it says that hammered out by lawmakers, including Senators Joe Manchin and Susan Collins, again, Republican and Democrat. This bipartisan legislation, they say, is intended to provide better guardrails to govern how presidential elections results get from the states to the Electoral College process and then to Congress, and how Congress handles them once there. And it's that according to many, the Electoral College Count Act of 1887 was overdue for an overhaul because it did not offer clear guidance on counting Electoral College votes or how to resolve possible disputes. I should note briefly that they're acknowledging here that, again, the way that the Electoral College rules were established did not clearly define some of the different processes, meaning, of course, that some of the narratives that Trump tried overthrowing that process is debunked by the very nature of the vague language, which, again, they had to clarify with an act signed by Biden after the elections, right? But back on this, it says the new law mainly addresses what Congress does after electors are sent forward from the states. It creates a new threshold for members of object to a state of electors, 1/5 of the members of both the House and Senate, identifies the role of the vice president as solely ministerial, because remember that when Mike Pence was counting the Electoral College votes, he was arguing he did not have the legal right to, maybe question states that had ongoing lawsuits or ongoing investigations into fraud. And he said he did not have the legal right to, for example, decide to read the dueling electors over the other electors. And because of that, again, which would, under the Constitution, normally send that to a House vote based on delegations, under which Trump probably would have won the elections, given the split of the House at the time. And of course, it's based on state representation, not purely House seats, meaning, again, Republicans would have more representation. They had to actually change this in order to say that you can't do that. The thing that Pence said he couldn't do, they had to change the law to make it so that he actually could not have. But this is what it does. It says it identifies the role of the vice president as solely ministerial and clarifies that Congress must defer to slates as determined by the states. Briefly on this, for Republicans and Trump, this actually might work out better for 2024 because it means that, like Kamala Harris as vice president can't just choose to not read electoral college votes. To be honest, at least for the 2024 elections, this may actually benefit Republicans even more, or at least closes the possible loophole that could come up through that, right? But it notes that it also addresses the state side of the equation. It codifies that the executive of each state sends forward a state slate of electors. The law indicates that in this context, the executive is usually a governor. Briefly on that as well, remember there was a conflict on who gets to determine who is the legal, person who gets to send forward the Electoral College voters. Again, during the 2020 elections, there was a debate over whether it's the governor or the state legislatures, the local state Congress, basically. And of course, if you go by the Constitution, I had believed, as did many, that the state legislatures were the ones, right? The state legislature is what gets to decide that. And of course, in many states, the dueling electors were put forward by the state legislature, whereas the state governors